Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of TC Talk. My name is Therese, and thanks for stopping by. So, I have a very interesting, topic for you guys today, and it has, resonated with me, if only because I am a creator that wants to make it in this industry, and this sort of stuff that's been happening, and it has been an interesting story. Does I feel impact, people like me and other creators as a whole, and I'll get into that in a minute. But, to jump right into it, it's all about, Roald Dahl and what they have been doing, or wanted, I suppose, what they wanted to do to his books. And, I might be showing my age as I say this, but Roald Dahl was a big part of my life growing up as a kid, and I enjoyed his books. One of my favorites was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and, Matilda. So when I first read about what they were doing, I got very angry. I still probably will get very angry because I imagine that this isn't going to be the end of the story. And we'll see where this goes, because it not only has gone to, Roald Dahl, but it has gone to, other books as well, which I'll go in a minute. But let's just, start at the beginning. So I found this. So what were they trying to do? Roald Dahl books were rewritten to remove language deemed offensive. Okay, let's just read this. Augustus Gloop now enormous instead of fat. Mrs. Twit no longer ugly, and Oompa Loompas are gender neutral. Okay. Roald Dahl's children's books are being rewritten to remove language deemed offensive by publisher Puffin. Puffin has high sensitivity readers. That's a job, apparently. To rewrite chunks of author's text to make sure the books can continue to be enjoyed by all today, resulting in extensive changes across Dahl's work. Edits have been made to descriptions of characters' physical appearances. The word fat has been cut from every new edition of the relevant books, while the word ugly has also been culled. Augustus Gloop in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is now described as enormous. In the twist, Mrs. Twit is no longer ugly and beastly, but just beastly. Hundreds of changes were made to the original text, and some passages were not written by Dahl have been added. But Ronald Dahl's story company said it is not unusual to review the language during a new print run. So yeah, let's have a look at this. Let's see, where is that? Don't be foolish. So you can see on the left was the original text, and the right is their re-editing. They're so clever editing. So instead, they don't want to be offensive. You can see that you don't go around pulling hair every lady you meet, even if she's wearing gloves. Just try and see what happens. Don't be foolish, my grandmother said. Besides, there are plenty of other reasons why women might wear wigs. Okay, there are so many reasons why I don't like this. I don't like this premise. And first of all, sensitivity readers. That's a job. That is a job to make sure that, old texts, old works are up to date and fit for the modern audience. I have a strong suspicion that these positions are for people that, probably studied some gender studies curriculum in a university, and now I'm trying to find work because, writing papers and doing peer-reviewed research papers isn't enough. That is my guess. I can go into a whole another diatribe as to what I think about the education system and the universities in terms of what they are doing, what they are creating, but that is another video. But this, as a creative, this infuriated me. I'll just read another example, and then I'll go into the reasons why. Even if she's working as a cashier in the supermarket or typing letters for businessmen, and they changed that to even if she is working as a top scientist or running a business. Okay, did you see why they made that change there? Because they wanted to make it more gender neutral, because women are now in the workforce. Which here's the thing. I actually don't have a problem, obviously, with women in the workforce, but Is this the appropriate way to broach this topic? And here's another example which I'll go to, which is from Matilda. She went on an olden day sailing ships with Joseph Conrad. She went to Africa with Ernest Hemingway and went to India with Rudyard Kipling. So what they changed it instead? She went to 19th century estates with Jane Austen. She went to Africa with Ernest Hemingway and California with John Steinbeck. Can you guess? Can you guess why they removed Rudyard Kipling? And here's the thing. Here's, among many other reasons, like I said before, why I don't like this. Who is a creative in this situation? Who is the one that's actually making the artwork? The book. It was Roald Dahl. He was a writer, and I can. Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you can really tell who are the people and what their biases, because everyone is biased. You can tell who the people are that are re-editing this, right? And why they are doing this. And this really cheeses me off because works should stand on their own. And I do have a lot to say about the death with the author theory, which is something completely different, which is a whole nother topic, I guess. But I think for me, I just feel like there needs to be some sort of, well, I guess respect for the creatives, especially those that passed away, that are no longer there to actually defend it or to say. And yeah, works are going to be, and I guess for me, one of the bigger reasons why I don't like this is that norms shift constantly. So this is in my mind, very bad precedent to start setting. If only because it will never end. If you think that this is where they're going to stop because they want to keep the modern audiences, what do you think is going to happen 5-10 years down the track? There's always going to be shifts in norms, and it's going to come back to all of us as creatives. We are all products in our time. I grew up I was a 90s child. I grew up as a teenager. I went to uni through the noughties and then 2010s, and yeah, there are probably some words and things that I probably used, but should that mean I have to apologize for that, re-edit and say that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And the fact that everything now is being analyzed through, and I'm gonna just sorry. And the fact that everything now is, especially the history books, old, movies, which is a whole nother section. All these old movies have to have all these. Basically, they have to have all these trigger warnings because they are products of their time, made, say, like 1940s or whatever. Have to warn the modern audiences. Why? It just I don't think that this is a good precedent to set, because no, I can see that they will want to go back to, for example, my stuff, just to say, because it doesn't fit the audience of the 2050s. Say, do you see where this goes? And I just, yeah, but, well, is this where it ends? Well, no. It looks as though they've gone back on this. Oh, I'll read this. So, as you can imagine, I'll go through this first. As you can imagine, there are people that are okay with this. So, I mean, I guess this is an article, and I do have to thank Jimmy. Jimmy's a friend of mine here who linked me to this article, and I suppose, and it came out in the Sydney Morning Herald actually. So, well, thank you, Jimmy, for linking to this article. Let me allow me to talk about this. And there are people that are okay with this sort of thing. And Augustus Gloop is no longer fat; he's enormous, and that's sweet with me. Okay, well, I suppose and I suppose that is the argument. Language is dynamic; it changes constantly and has done so since the first apes uttered the first grunts and first scribes committed the first words to the papyrus. Words are both shaped by the culture in which they appear and have enormous power to shape the culture in turn, especially what we deem normal. As we gain greater awareness and sensitivity towards all different groups and types of people that make up our society, it's entirely appropriate that we cast a sensitive ear to the words we use to speak to each other, both in everyday life and the books for children. Okay, I guess for me, I am in 2 months about this. I am all for basically not being an asshole and being respectful for other people, particularly those that come from a different culture, different age, different demographic, point blank to you. With that said, on the same coin, maybe on the other side of sensitivity, is, in my mind, emotional resilience. Can we please, for the love of everything good and decent, start bringing up our kids and generation with that instead of just building safe spaces? That's my thoughts. Anyway, so this is an author and he has his own views. So he ends with this. Mind you, I'm talking about the words, not the content. I will defend the right, in fact, the duty of any writer for young children to present their audiences with the most imagination-stretching, slush-funking, whiz-popping, thought-provoking, irrelevant, silly styling, funny, sad, and powerfully involving content they're capable of dreaming up. And Roald Dahl does that in spades. Another reason why his books are still being read so enthusiastically today. So, rewriting normally ceases once a book has been published, but in the case of books that have outlived the times in which they're written, I think an argument for sensitive consideration whether or not word choice matches current sensitivities is justified. But here's the thing. Does this mean that, and maybe I've touched this point already, but does this mean that every 10 years we have to re-edit our stuff just so it's appropriate for modern audiences? No. I'm not. I will not do this. I'm not going to, because as much as it is a business, and it is, if I wanted to succeed as a business, as an artist, let me reword this. If I want to succeed financially as a creative artist, I do need to have a business model and audience in mind. But as much as it is about them, it is about me creating the stuff that I want. And I'm glad that other people are saying this, but I will not apologize. I'm not going to apologize for the thoughts that I feel or the words that I say or what I speak. And I feel like this is a very bad precedent to doing just that. So, we'll see. It looks as though they're, where's that other story? They're actually not going to, they've actually reneged on this, and just give me a second as I find that story. It was on my Facebook. Give me one moment. So it looks as though they are actually not going to, they're going to have both versions. They're going to have the re-edited versions. There we go. Roald Dahl's classics will continue to be published after rewrites spark row. So Puffin reassured readers that they will continue to publish Roald Dahl's books in their classic format alongside reformatted editions for children, having listened to the debate. So I am glad about this. So they will continue to publish the original text in conjunction with the updated edited versions. So the classic editions will include 17 Penguin titles, each with added archive material relevant to each of the stories. Wow. Okay. The Puffin imprint will release books for young readers designed for children who may be navigating reading content independently for the first time. The changes mean that readers will be free to choose which version of Dahl's stories they prefer, Dr. Puffin said. Okay, so we've listened to the debate over the past week, which has reaffirmed the extraordinary power of Roald Dahl's books and the very real questions about how stories from another era can be kept relevant for each new generation. You know how you do this, in my opinion? Nuance and context. You do it with nuance and the context of which the author, the creative, was brought up and what they're trying to say in that previous zeitgeist. You don't have to like it. It might be, not be great for your sensibilities, but well, it happened. You might as, that's how I see it. Okay, so by making both Puffin and Penguin versions available, we are offering readers the choice to decide how they experience Roald's magical marvelous stories. So it looks as though they're going to do that, 2 versions. People have said, what is the solution? If you have the old original texts, like the physical copies, make sure you keep them, because we don't know whether or not they will keep to this announcement. So, does it end there? No, it does not, because guess who else is on the cutting line? Jane's Bond novels edited to remove racist content. Do you see why it's a slip? I mean, it's very easily argument for a slippery slope, because if just one goes on the chopping block, it's open door to everything else. Every other creative work can now be put under that on the critical lens. So yeah, look, let's see this. After the Roald Dahl text editing controversy that erupted in recent days, it's now the turn in Fleming's James Bond novel to be rewritten. And what in UK newspaper The Telegraph reveals ahead of the reissue of Bond novels in April to mark 70 years of Casino Royale, the first book in the series, right holds Ian Fleming's publications. LTD commissioned a review by sensitivity readers. Okay. Each book will carry the disclaimer. This book was written at a time when terms and attitudes which might be considered offensive by modern readers were commonplace. A number of updates have been made in this edition while keeping as close as possible to the original text and the period in which it is set. Commonly used pejorative term used for black people at Fleming, whose Bond books were published between 1951 and 1966, has been removed almost entirely and replaced with black person or black man. In all other instances, references have been edited. So they edit it, but also give a warning that was a time so would have harmful content, even though the harmful content has been removed. Is that what you're saying? Anyway. For example, in Live and Let Die, opinion of Africans in the Golden Diamond trains as pretty law-abiding chaps I should have thought, except for when they've drunk too much, has been altered to pretty law-abiding chaps I should have thought. Oh, they cut that line out completely. Okay. Except when right. Okay. Another scene in the book set during the striptease at... Oh, am I even allowed to say this? He felt like his mouth was dry. This. A scene in the book describing scented dialogue as straight home deep south with a lot of New York thrown in has been removed. That's offensive as well. In several of the books, including Thunderball, Quantum of Solace, and Goldfinner, ethnicities have been removed entirely. Okay. The edits to the US edition of Live and Let Die were authorized by Fleming himself. He died in 1964. Okay. We at Fleming Publications reviewed the text of original Bond books and decided our best course of action was to follow Ian's lead. We made changes to Live and Let Die that he himself authorized. Well, at least in this instance, the author was allowed to actually agree to this. So, personally, I don't see it as bad, but I don't know. We encouraged to read the books for themselves when the new paperbacks were published. Well, how are they supposed to compare if the old editions are gone? I'm interested in thought. We'll see. So, so this is where the story is, I guess, at the moment. Let me know, if there's any, updates on this. I just think it's a very interesting time to be a creative if this is going to be what is at stake. So yeah, as I might have highlighted before, I actually don't like the precedent this is setting, and not only because I am a very big Roald Dahl fan, that he was a big part of my childhood. I just think that there needs to if anything, there needs to be more nuanced discussion about this. But let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you next time.